Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address presented by pucksandpitchforks.com. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with the editor-in-chief, Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, and Twitch. Twitter Live and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Tonight's title, Devils, buyers or sellers? We got a great guest coming on a little bit later, Alex Chauvancy, on the rush. Yes, on the rush writer. Coming on, good friend of the podcast.
Sam, I'm going to blow your mind. I got breaking news.
Let me guess. It starts with the T?
There has been a trade.
Yeah.
Oh, you saw it?
Well, I don't want to spoil your spot here, so why don't you reveal what you know?
The Devils have been involved in a Chris Tanev trade.
Really?
They're not getting Chris Tanev.
Okay.
They've actually traded Cole Brady, goalie they drafted, I think, in the 5th round a couple of years ago. Former Arizona State player. I think he's at UMass this year, which is a very good program. They traded Cole Brady, and they are retaining 25% of Chris Tanev's salary, and they're getting a 4th-round pick.
All right.
I mean, it's something. Fitzgerald has done stuff with middle-round picks before. I was kind of hoping it would be more than that. But for retaining, retaining usually costs something. There's a lot to talk about with this trade, though. So I'm kind of trying to put my thoughts together. Here's where I'm at with this trade. There's two things you really have to focus on if you're a Devils fan to feel good about this trade. A, the Devils are talking to the Flames. And the Devils have a lot of money to kind of play around with. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, maybe they were just talking about, let's say, a Markstrom trade. And the Flames like, hey, we're working on this other deal for Tanev. We're not talking to you about Tanev. Do you mind, you have all this extra money that you're not going to use. Do you mind jumping in and helping us because you have this Dougie Hamilton money? And the Devils said, sure. What's it going to cost? And they get a 4th-round pick. Great. Again, I wish it was a third. That's kind of that. The going rate for 50% retained was a second. So I was hoping 25% would get you a third, but a 4th, you're also giving up a prospect. And I'll tell you something, Sam, that I'm currently putting together the top 25 prospects. I got to take Cole Brady off now. He wasn't very high. I have Jacob Malik, who's playing in Europe, up higher than him. Obviously, I have Schmid and Dawes ahead of him. Dawes is hard to say if he's a prospect or not, right? Because he's kind of our starting goalie right now. But I have both of them. I got 3 goalies ahead of him. I think I actually have 4 because I got Brennan ahead of him, Tyler Brennan, who's playing in Adirondack right now. So I think Cole Brady could be an NHL player one day, but I just think that there's players who are better than him ahead of him in the Devils organization. The stint at Arizona State didn't really work out well. He's playing at UMass. I'm going to be honest. I haven't looked at his stats because I haven't written the actual 12-25 prospects. I'm just kind of doing it in research mode right now. So essentially the Devils traded Cole Brady for a 4th-round pick. And I think they used a 5th-round pick on him. So it's a slight upgrade. I mean, it's not anything to go home about. But before I hear your comment on that, Sam, and before we kind of jump to conclusions of whether the Devils are buyers or sellers, because that's the name of the podcast tonight, this is very good news if you want Jacob Markstrom. Because the Flames never retain salary. Never, ever retain salary on a player. Until today. And we've heard from Elliot Friedman, and I think, any of the rumors guys have said the thing that ended the Markstrom trade for the Devils was retention. The Devils wanted the Flames to retain. The Flames did not want to retain. And the Flames have never retained before in their history. Today is the first time. From what I can remember, the Flames have never retained on a deal, and they're retaining today for the first time. Obviously, it's different to retain on Tanev, who's 1 year versus 3 years for Markstrom, but you're taking somebody who's never done something. They get this new GM in, and they retain on one of the first deals that he makes. So it shows you that maybe there's a changing of the guard. Maybe that was a Brad Tree Living thing, who's now in Toronto. But I think that for those who want Markstrom, this is good news.
Okay. I don't want him. But that's just me.
You don't want Markstrom?
Nope.
Why?
I'm not sold on this team actually making the playoffs with or without Markstrom.
Can I ask you something real quick before you? Do you not want Markstrom, period, or do you not want Markstrom for the price?
Price. Strictly price.
Okay.
Strictly price.
Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same argument I was trying to make with Timo Meier, because at the time I thought the risk was too high for him to re-sign at a good AAV. And it turned out that he was re-signed 8 years at a reasonable AAV. But I believe that contract is front-loaded in terms of money, but in terms of the salary cap,
Actual cash.
Yeah, it's actually not a bad contract that Timo Meier signed. So I'm a very conservative believer, not standing pat. Just watching things happen isn't such a bad thing. I know a lot of Devils fans and people seen a couple op-ed pieces that they want to see action, but sometimes it's just better just to smell the coffee and just observe before you pounce. You don't have to take action at all times.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about some of the pieces we saw from friends of the podcast.
Yeah, it's a different point of view. It's not a
yeah. And again, yeah. I think we've been on different sides of the rough argument. I don't fire people. It's just something like I don't let my writers fire people. It's just not. I don't think that's why I'm here. I don't think that's why the blog is here. I don't know. I don't know if you have the same philosophy for the podcast. I don't know what Shorts Guy or Beer Baron or Scotty or Vinny have said.
I don't think anybody wants to fire people. I think people want ideas. I mean, this podcast is about ideas. It's about opinions.
Sure.
It's not about taking a approach where, I want to fire Lindy Ruff. No, I like to see what we can do to improve the team, so to speak. And with Fitzgerald, the argument that James Nichols put that where's Fitzy and all this, he could have done something a while back. But if you think about it, like some of the deals that were rumored to be possibly happening when they were kicking the tires on Hellebuck and all that, I just thought this was just not good for the team overall in terms of cap finances, commitment, the risk of injury on a big contract. I mean, even the Timo Meier and the Jesper Bratt contracts is somewhat of a risk because it's long term. But they all are risk, but
Jesper
risks.
Bratt and Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier aren't going to tank this team.
Yeah,
if they suck. If Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt suck, it stinks that you're spending that money. But you can bury that kind of a deal, right? Or you can just put them on the third line. It is what it is. Or for a goalie, if you're paying what's Hellebuck making? Almost $9 million.
Yeah,
he's making almost $9 million. You can't bury that. He's your goalie. So if he fell apart, so I was with you in that. I did not want Hellebuck because I felt.
I mean, didn't we learn anything about Corey Schneider?
Yeah.
Great guy.
That's kind of where we're.
Yeah, great guy, elite goaltender for those couple years. But guess what happened, folks? We're still living with it for the last year of that contract. He's on the books.
And I think part of it is that hips go now. Goalies are asked to do more. The guys are more skilled now. So and they're asked to stop the puck just as good as Brodeur and Hasek and Watt in their day. So to do that, they have to go side to side more. They have to get, and that usually does a lot to your hip. So I get it. And Hellebuck has been asked to do a lot. He's been asked to do a lot this year as well. And I just don't know if that contract is going to age well. But
yeah, the one contract that aged very well in the past for the New Jersey Devils was Marty Brodeur, because he took a significant pay cut. He could have got more money elsewhere, but he wanted to play more, and he wanted, he wanted to stay with the organization as long as he did.
Which one are you talking about? Because he's made a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it was the one that was $6.2 million for 7 years. Was that?
Yeah.
Or 6 years? I forgot.
He had one that was around 9, wasn't it?
I don't think he ever went that high.
I got to double check, because I thought he had like a short one for, but maybe I'm crazy, when there was no salary cap. But maybe I'm just...
No, there was a 5.2 and then a 6.7. 6.2. I don't remember. I mean, we're talking about the Lou days. But Marty Brodeur could have, because remember, when the pre-salary cap era, the New York Rangers were just like throwing cable TV money when everybody was wanting the cord. Now they're cutting the cord.
Yeah, it was 6 years, $31 million, so about 5.2.
Yeah.
Maybe I was looking at it like from today's perspective.
Mm-hmm. But regardless, again, when you're trading for players, you're acquiring players, and in the salary cap era, you have to. I mean, you got to budget accordingly. And I'm not just talking about dollars and cents. I'm talking about commitment, long term. There's 20 spots on the team for a game.
Yeah.
Is one of them going to be such dead weight? I'll tell you, a contract that was dead weight was a Wade Redding contract that the Rangers have. And luckily,
I mean, how many contracts does Rangers sign that were just dead weight?
Just to let you know, Nick, the power's still on. The emergency backup is on. I think we're still on air. I believe we are, but I'm just letting you know right now. Yeah, but
hey, listen.
Hey, you know what? That's what happens when you're at the bunker. We have survivability. If something were to happen, and I would say the nuclear, catastrophe, you've got cockroaches, taxes, and the Let's Go Devils podcast, and Alex Chauvancy. Yeah.
Chauvancy.
Yeah. On the Rush Writer. You can find him on Twitter at AlexC_NJD. Alex, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going great. We did a trade, Alex. We did a trade. We just kind of like broke it down a little bit. Devils get a 4th round pick. They lose Cole Brady. They get involved with the Flames, which obviously is a team that they've been tied to with Jacob Markstrom and possibly Noah Hannafin. Tell me what your initial thoughts are with this deal.
Yeah, so a little bit surprised that they ended up being facilitators in this trade as a third party to retain some cap space. But I think Todd Cordell just tweeted it out before. They're kind of low on some mid-round picks in the coming years, so getting a 4th there might not be the worst thing. I've seen some people say that it makes the Devils sellers. I don't know. I don't really buy that. Like, they had all their retention slots, I'm pretty sure, and they're not going to need all their retention slots unless they really are sellers. So I don't really think it hampers their ability to make trades going forward. So, but definitely interesting. I wasn't expecting them to be the third party in this trade for sure.
And they have a ton of LTIR space. So like,
yeah,
what is 25% of Tana's contract? Is that like $2 million at most?
I think it's even less.
Probably
than
not
that.
even. Yeah. So
exactly.
It's getting a 4th round pick. Obviously, like, I've liked Cole Brady as a talent, but he hasn't ever really lived up to that talent. So I think that losing him is weird as part of this, but it is what it is. You just kind of like I don't even think. I think like because of the timing of his prospect situation. I don't even know if they have the rights to him, and he's at UMass this year. So it was the whole thing was very strange, but I think it was smart personally. And Alex, tell me if you agree with this. If the Devils truly are trying to get Markstrom or trying to get Hannafin, I think it's smart to do a favor beforehand to the Flames, and maybe the Flames eventually, give them what they want in terms of retention.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely shows they've been talking to Calgary a lot, right? For them to be part of this, as the third party facilitator in this trade. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think it definitely could help, if they're trying to get a deal done for Noah Hannafin or Jacob Markstrom, or maybe even both. You do a little bit of a favor here to kind of help the Flames and I guess get in their goodwill, maybe after the Markstrom trade fell through. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad deal at all. And like I said before, I don't think it affects whether they're buyers or sellers either. I think, how they're going to do these next couple of games here against Los Angeles and Anaheim will determine that more than anything else. So we'll see.
So let me ask you this, and now that the trade is, just so you know, we're going to kind of change the order up a little bit just because this trade happened, but I do want to know what you think of the trade deadline. And do you see them getting a goalie? Do you see them making the move?
I think if they're gonna get one goalie, it would probably be Markstrom at this point. Saros, I think he's staying put in Nashville. Could they go for like a short-term option like Capo Kakinen or something like that? I mean, he got lit up last night by the Devils, but that was a tough situation
I don't know
for
if
him
it's him.
coming in like that. Yeah, so if they were scouting Kakinen before and they saw him last night, maybe that turned them off a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to get a goalie. If I had to bet, it would be Markstrom. I don't see Saros happening, but I would say I still lean toward them getting something done in net before the trade deadline a week from now, or a little more than that, I guess.
Yeah, the guy I wrote about was Dreger, and I guess he's in Coachella Valley, but he's with the Seattle Kraken. He's had a good season in AHL. He's been called up twice, and he's had some decent results. But he's a guy who's been an NHL goalie. He's been good. He had a pretty severe injury last year, if I recall correctly, but he's been back and been playing. So, I think that's another move that he's a free agent at the end of the season, kind of like a much better version of the Andrew Hammond trade, where it's like, listen, throwing you guys a bone. I think that if you kind of want to go with three, right, you want to be like, I'll play the hottest goalie between Dreger, Dawes, and Vanacek, and then we'll figure out the Vanacek thing in the offseason. I think that's kind of part of it. But that's just kind of like my off-the-cuff thinking of like who's out there that would be super cheap to get and is still an upgrade. So do you want Markstrom?
Yeah, I personally prefer Markstrom, even though he's older than Saros. And I don't have anything against Saros, like talent-wise, but I have really no interest in paying Saros an 8-year contract that will probably be like $8.5 million a year. And it's not even the money that scares me with Saros. It's giving him 8 years for his age, like 30 to 37 or 38 years seasons. And he's a smaller goalie who relies heavily on his athleticism. So if that ever drops off, I feel like it could get ugly pretty quickly. If I had to like pick between Hellebuck and Saros giving 8-year deals, I would probably choose Hellebuck over Saros. That's really the one thing that kind of scares me with Saros is the extension. And I guess what you would have to pay to get him in a trade, because it sounds like Barry Trotz is asking for basically the farm to move him. So that would give me a little bit of pause too. But it's really more so the extension with him. I'm not crazy about giving him an 8-year contract for sure. That's why I like Markstrom. You get him for 2.5 years. So if you do somehow make the playoffs this year, you could maybe get 3 runs with him, and then you'd hope over those 2.5 years that you could develop one of your goalies, whether it's Nico Dawes, Kira Schmidt, or even Jakub Malik. They could come in and play, and you never know who else you could get in that time as well.
So I want to get back to the trade stuff because I want to talk about other players besides the goalie, but I want to talk about last night because last night was fantastic for me. I really enjoyed. I was able to get to bed at a reasonable hour because the Devils scored 7 goals, and I was like, all right, 12:30, 7 goals on the board. I think I could go to bed. So it was great. But we saw the best out of Timo Meier, and we've been seeing the best out of him since he's been joined to the hip of Jesper Bratt and Nico Hischier. You wrote about this today on The Rush, which you've been making great strides with. We really love what you've been doing over there. So for those who don't know, Alex Chauvancy's on Substack writing about the Devils. Please go follow him. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But I do want to talk about your latest article on that Hischier, Bratt, Meier line. What was your analysis of that?
So I thought they looked really good last night. I kind of wish that Ruff had stuck with them for the whole game against Tampa. He broke them up to start the third period. You never know what they could have done maybe in that final period. But I guess hindsight's 2020. But Montreal game, they looked really good, and it's just really whenever they're together, it kind of looks like they play really well anytime they're together. Dating back to last season after when they acquired Meier from San Jose. They've always posted really great underlying numbers together. Even this season in a small sample. They have, I think their expected goal shares around like 64% after last night. I think it's partly because Bratt always looks great with Hischier and Meier always looks great with Hischier. So when you put the three of them together, it just works really well. And I think it also brings out the best in Timo Meier. He didn't play poorly with Dawson Mercer and Curtis Lazar, but the production wasn't really there. Feels like when he's with Nico and Bratt, specifically as those two with his line mates, it feels like the production's always there. It seems like they get the best out of him. Like the Montreal game, he moves up to their line. He has the big shot block later in the game that leads to Bratt's goal. And then last night, he was skating well. I thought he was doing a lot of work in transition. He got the one goal taken away from him on the power play, so he could have had a 3-point night if that were the case, but he still ended up with 2 assists. I think if the Devils are going to get back in the playoff picture here, you really need to get Timo Meier going, and I think the best place for that would be with Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that those three have that chemistry, and I'm curious what I've seen some say that a lot of it is that Meier has been able to move to his natural right wing, and Bratt has played a lot of left wing in his time, and it kind of puts them in kind of the positions that they should be in. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot over the last few days on Twitter. I'm not entirely sure that's true. I think that it's just more that Meier just happens to be going down the right side a lot. But I mean, if you see Amanda's pregame lineups, he's always listed on the left side. So I don't know if that's entirely true, but that Montreal game. I was at the Montreal game. I got a good view of him. He was going down the right side a lot. I think it just that happened to be the case. There's a lot of talk about Lindy Ruff's system and stuff, but for the forwards, it's a pretty positionless system. So maybe not now since they've changed the defensive zone structure. The center has more responsibility, but I don't think there's that much to it right now. So I think that maybe it's just kind of coincidence. He's made some really good plays going down the right side, and it looks like he's playing right wing, but I don't think he's been there entirely.
So you mentioned Curtis Lazar earlier in reference to Meier and how it wasn't really working out, but now last night they put Curtis Lazar next to Hughes, and I think Lazar's had a fantastic season for what he is, and he deserves to have better spots in the lineup, but I was floored, as well as a lot of fans were floored, to see him next to Jack Hughes. And I believe it was him, Hughes, and Palat. But Hughes had his best game probably since returning. Maybe the Seattle game, but I think this was probably his best game since returning from injury around the All-Star game. So what do you think? I told you about my theory. My theory is that it takes Jack 10 games to come back from his injuries, and last night was game 11. Do you think we're going to see Super Saiyan Jack Hughes from now on?
I really hope so. I mean, last night was pretty crazy. I like the Dragon Ball Z reference too. But 18 shot attempts, I think 11 shots on goal, and obviously the 3 points. I don't love Palat and Lazar with him, but the way I think the part of the reasoning, and I wrote about it in the takeaways post for that game last night, was one, I think Jack is still hurt, so you have Lazar there to take face-offs, and then Jack has also been struggling defensively since they came back from the breaks, and you have Palat and Lazar have been their 2 best defensive forwards this season. So you put them with him. They kind of cover up any defensive deficiencies that Hughes might have right now. I think Hughes, I don't know what his injury is. I thought Bryce maybe said it was his shoulder, but I can't remember. Right? If it is his shoulder again, he might not be. Probably why he's not taking faceoffs. And maybe defensively he's maybe a little afraid to re-injure it on contact and stuff. So you have two guys who play pretty hard, and Palat and Lazar around him. I understand. Like, I might not agree with that line combination totally, but I understand the reasoning behind it. And I know it was the Sharks last night, but it looked pretty good. They got good results out of it, so can't complain right now.
Yeah, and I think that part of it is also you kind of want Jack Hughes to kind of go into Superman mode, right? You want him to kind of have that, like, I can do it on my own, and he has guys who can protect him, and there's a lot to it. I want to go back to like the moves because I wrote an article today about just kind of like the 5v5 scoring just being down, or like the 5v5 chances just being way down from where they were last year. The offense is not performing like it was last year. Their number one guy when it comes to on-ice 5v5 chances is John Marino. So it's like a very strange year. And I get it, like time and ice has a lot to do with it, but it's just a very strange year. What are your thoughts as far as a move? Do you think that, like, if they don't get a goalie, do you think defenseman is absolutely the move, or do you think they can add on the offense?
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get a goalie with the LTIR money they have right now, depending on who they get, maybe they could add a forward and a defenseman. I think defenseman's more of a priority for sure. We've seen some of even against San Jose last night for the first, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes of that game last night, they were a mess defensively. The first period, the Sharks had like 1.11 expected goals, and the Devils' rush defense was pretty terrible. Like the Sharks were having no trouble gaining the zone. And I think part of it's you have some inexperienced guys back there. Luke Hughes has kind of hit the rookie wall the last week or two. Also, he's definitely not been playing his best. Nemitz is a little bit up and down recently too. So I think if you get like a Noah Hannafin, makes a ton of sense because of his age as well. He's 26. I think he'll be 27 soon, so he kind of fits with the core of the team. I don't know what he would cost in a trade. We saw the Tanev trade before, so maybe that gives us a bit of an idea. But I think defense would be the way to go here because it's not just you want a long-term fit there. I don't think you're just trying to get a rental. Obviously, it doesn't make sense for where they're in the standings either. But when you look at like someone like Hannafin, I think or even Jacob Chikrin, if the Sens decide to move him, those would be two guys that would really give a boost to this blue line that they kind of need.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. The defense situation is pretty untenable, and Luke Hughes has taken a step back. Just he's hit some kind of rookie wall clearly, and Nemitz has been fine, but he's been fine. He hasn't replaced Dougie like he did the first 10 or so games that he's been up. And you have Ball, who's a very volatile defenseman. A defenseman would not be a bad move. You're not wrong there. My last question is, I'm just gonna be straight with it, and we'll definitely get to some of the things you're writing for On the Rush and the podcast and the hockey writers, but I want to know, do you think the Devils make the playoffs?
I think it really is going to depend on what Philadelphia decides to do in the next week. If they decide to sell Nick Seeler, Sean Walker, maybe Scott Lawton, and maybe a couple other guys, we'll see. You don't know what it's going to do to that Flyers locker room. They could just implode and have a big losing streak, but that also requires the Devils to go on a winning streak themselves, and they haven't really shown that they can do that to this point. Now, like we were saying before, if Jack Hughes is about to go Super Saiyan, then maybe they're going to make a run. I think most like the models you look at, whether it's like Stathletes or Money Puck or The Athletic, I think they got the Devils around like 30 to 35% to make the playoffs, maybe even a little lower. I'd probably have them around 30% to make the playoffs at this point as well. I think it doesn't look 5 points in 23, 24 games doesn't seem like it would be a lot to make up, but it's tough to make up. So I say I would love to say that they would make it, but the odds are really against them at this point. So I would have to lean no right now. But if they come out of this West Coast trip having won, all three of the games, then maybe that gives them a jolt and they can go on a run here ahead of the trade deadline and get going.
Alex, I want to give you a moment, just so everybody knows. I didn't see this at first. The pick that the Devils got is in 2026, so I definitely like this a lot less. I definitely like this a lot less. But now that really makes me think that this is just a facilitator to like butter up Calgary, right? That's what this
Yeah,
is telling me.
that's
This
definitely
is.
possible for sure. Yeah.
But Alex, take a second. Tell everybody who might not know, where can they find you now? What have you been up to? What's some of those pieces that you've been working on? Tell them where they can find your great work.
Yeah, so I have my own Substack that I started at the beginning of the regular season. It's the same name as the podcast for those that you listen to it, Devils on the Rush Substack. I'm running a sale right now for the trade deadline, 60% off for 1 year. So that's would be like
Wow,
$2.40.
that's a big
Yeah.
that's a big drop, Alex.
Yeah, it's a big one, but I figured for the trade deadline, get some subscriptions in. You can get so that'd be I think like $2.40 a month for 12 months if you want to sign up for that. I saw today that I think David Pagnotta said something about the Kings having interest in Tyler Toffoli, so I'm gonna be writing about that probably for later tomorrow afternoon because I got to do trade grades for the TANF trade for the hockey writers. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at AlexC_NJD, and then there's links to my Substack there in my bio, and I post links anytime I post an article. There's a link there. You can go check it out that way. And yeah, if you have the Substack app, I recommend downloading that because that's usually the easiest way to read the articles.
Guys, tomorrow, turn on that coffee pot, that Mr. Coffee you haven't turned on in a couple months. Skip the Starbucks and go subscribe to On the Rush. The $2.12. Are you kidding me? Come on, guys. That's like Alex is a great writer. He's fantastic. He's a friend of the podcast. And you're writing almost every day, so you're really killing with content. Alex, I really appreciate you coming on, giving us some of your expertise, and we'll look forward to your writing, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Thanks, Alex. That is
Take care, guys.
Alex Chauvancy on the Rush. Chris Boker says, "Thanks, Alex. You got my $2." There you go.
Let's go. $2.
There you go. There you go.
He's
Alex
about 6 away from affording a really nice Starbucks coffee.
Yeah, Alex is retaining some of that salary, like the New Jersey Devils, in that trade. This tells me
2026 though, Sam. What are we doing?
No. You know what this means? He's collecting assets for something bigger to throw in. Because remember that Calgary.
That's what Frank Saravalli said.
Yeah, remember that Calgary pick that went around and then went eventually back to Calgary?
Yeah.
I think it was to Severson. It came via Severson and then to Foley, So there is a relationship with Calgary and the New Jersey Devils. We didn't get Matthew Tkachuk out of it, but we got Tyler Toffoli out of it. Could there be something interesting? Could it be a blockbuster? A blockbuster of proportions.
I really again, I don't know anything. I don't want people to think that I don't reveal my sources. I don't reveal my sources' information. I've never been one to want to get into the.
I don't think anybody should reveal sources, to be honest. But
yeah, sorry. I mean, I don't like if people come to me with information, and people have. I have no interest in being a breaking news person because then you always have to be that guy. But
yeah.
I do think that this is I'm about to tweet Jacob Markstrom, you are a New Jersey Devil because I think that's what this means. Like I do. I think this means it means one of two things. The Devils are trying to make a good faith move to get this Jacob Markstrom deal done, or a Markstrom deal is close, and the Devils this is part of it. I feel like this is one of the two things. Now, if it's the former of those, that doesn't mean that a Markstrom deal is close at all. It means that the Devils are throwing a Hail Mary out there and trying to, look at us, we're helping out. We'll give you a prospect. We'll take on a 4th-round pick and, in what I call the Keith Kincaid year, because, the Devils got like a 3 years away 5th-round pick for Keith Kincaid 1 year. But I truly do think I feel like this is something. And there's one of two things going on, Sam. Either the Devils are trying to get them to retain, which we've talked about before and has been talked about a lot, or they're trying to get them to take Vitek Vanacek, who has one more year left on his deal at over $3 million. They basically work the same. If I was the Devils, let me think about this. So Markstrom makes about $6 million next year, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Something like that. Yep.
So let's say he makes $6 million next year. If I came to you and said, the deal doesn't have to include Holtz, Mercer, Nemitz, obviously Hughes, like the deal is going to build around Lenny Haminaho. You know, one of their top 5 prospects, but not one of their top 2 prospects, which is Casey and Nemitz or Mercer or whatever, Holtz, whoever. But you have to basically pay him the equivalent of $7 million next year. So what you would do is you would trade for Markstrom and you would send Vitek Vanacek back, but you have to retain $1 million on Vitek. But they don't get it. They get Haminaho as the top prospect. Would you do that deal? Obviously, there's going to be like other things, maybe like a second, a future second, a future third or fourth. But where are you on that?
I would take my chances in the off season.
That's fair.
I'm very conservative when it comes.
Are you done with this season?
No, I think there's enough players in the room to get it done, to get in the playoffs. The goal is to get in the playoffs. See, I look at the risk reward here. The chances of the Devils getting to the third round is very slim either way, in my opinion, right? As of now, as of February 28th, 2024.
Yeah.
So what's the goal here? Obviously the goal is to try to win the Stanley Cup. But your odds of winning the Stanley Cups with this team, with Dougie Hamilton out, you got Luke Hughes that's played more games in the last few months than he's ever had in his entire life. Again, I like the position where I wouldn't want to put all my chips in. I also think that, there's a time and place for that, but right now I don't think it's the time. And, again, if the Devils get in the playoffs, great. Get knocked in the first round, knocked out in the second round. I kind of want to replenish our pipeline a little bit concurrently with a team that is going to be a perennial winner, we hope.
I'll say this. So we've had Scott Wheeler on the program before, prospect writer for The Athletic. He had us 22nd as far as prospect pipeline when we were number 2 last year. And he still had Simon Nemitz listed as a prospect.
That's interesting.
I was confused about that. I don't agree with that. He obviously graduated Luke Hughes. I think he graduated Alexander Holtz. But I just don't agree. Like, I've seen a lot of the teams that are ahead of us, and none of them have anybody who's even close to a short thing like Nemitz. And most of them are just kind of dealing with a lot of B's and B pluses instead of an A plus with what Nemitz is if you consider him a prospect. I'm doing the top 25 prospects right now, Sam, and this is probably one of the harder years in terms of filling the 25 slots because they didn't have a first round pick last year. And you kind of I go in kind of thinking Chase Stillman's going to go here because it's he's a guy that people are going to be looking for. I think that he makes sense here. But then you're like, well, he's actually better than this guy. He's actually better than that guy. I think he has more of a chance of NHL career as this guy. So you kind of he ends up moving up. And then again, Isaac Poultier. is a guy who just got an NHL contract, but I want to put him on the list because I do think that he has this is a guy who could play NHL games, and he fits the criteria because I think he's 23, which fits the criteria. So I'm going to put him on the list, but I was going to have him I'll just reveal this. I was going to have him 25, but when I look at the Devils prospect pool, I'm like, well, I actually think it's a better chance than this guy to be something. I think it's a better chance than that guy to be something. Like, you kind of look at the prospects. Like, there was years where, Sam, I had 25 prospects. I'm like, these could all be NHL players. And now I'm looking at 25 players where I'm like, this guy needs a Hail Mary. This guy needs to completely change his game. This guy needs to be a much better skater, which is really hard to do when you're a young player and you're not skating well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm looking at these things, and there's wholesale changes that need to be made with these guys' games to get into the NHL. And that's not saying there's anything wrong. It's hard to get into the NHL. But, I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, there's this guy's there. And on top, and this is a microcosm of a couple things. It's a team of Meyer trade. You lost Mikko Medulin, you lost Zetterlund, you lost Ahoytuk. This is other trades, you lost Riley Walsh, you lost there's another guy you lost this offseason I can't remember off the top of my head. And then some of the guys have just graduated out. Patrick Moynihan is no longer technically a Devils prospect. A lot of people remember him from the Jack Hughes draft because Jack Hughes asked Ray Shero, what do you think of Moynihan? And then Shero drafted him. And he's had some decent looks. And there was another guy that that's escaping me. That doesn't mean these guys can't sign with the Devils. Maybe Moynihan signs with the Devils after his year with Notre Dame. But anyway, I'm kind of going on a rant, but just because this is top of mind because I've been working on this. But I do think you're not completely wrong where the Devils could really use a jolt in their prospect pool, a couple added pieces.
This is where I'm coming from. I'll just be frank with it. I think the Devils are 3 players away from making a serious run in the playoffs. 3 players includes a goaltender, a veteran defenseman that's a stopper, and a forward that can literally we haven't even really talked about, but I don't think anybody's really replaced Mikey McLeod in the lineup.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
I think Lazar could have been that if Lazar wasn't already on the team, right?
Yeah.
If they had what this team was and traded for Lazar, but Lazar was already here, and then you had McLeod doing what he was doing.
I'm talking about face-off, special teams, dirty work, defending your teammate. If Bastion, that Bastion, a player that will actually take care of business right
Did
from
you
the
see my
get-go.
idea from a couple weeks ago of how
What's
to
that?
replace McLeod? Did you see my idea from a couple weeks ago?
No, I actually did not. Sorry.
Jonathan Toews is the guy I would go on. Devils have free money. Just give Toews $4 million.
But
Come
is
here.
he able to play?
I know it's going to be.
Is he able to play?
Yeah. He said last year that he thought he would be able to play. Obviously, these things change on a dime.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Toews had a better face-off percentage than McLeod last year.
Okay.
And he finished the season, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think Taves, with the long COVID and all that, I think he's taking some time off,
Yeah, but he has taken time off. There's been plenty of time.
Yeah, I know, but,
That would be the guy. Go after Taves. I was a little worried. I can't remember if I wrote this in the article or not, if I found out about it while I was researching it. But my worry was that Corey Crawford would get to him and say, don't go there. But since then, Corey Crawford has spoken about how – I don't know if you saw this. Corey Crawford has spoken about how much he regrets the Devils thing. And he said that the concussions is what caused him to retire. He just, he couldn't handle the post-concussion syndrome and could not be out there with a mask. And it was devastating him. So that tells me that, my worry was that Corey Crawford would be don't go there. There's something wrong there, and that's why he retired. But it sounds like Corey Crawford had a medical issue. So I think, he wouldn't say anything bad about the Devils.
Yeah.
The other issue, and I don't want to get into this, Sam, but I addressed in the article is, Taze was on that 2010 team, and if you're using him to replace McLeod, you have to think long and hard about how you're going to deal with that PR situation. It doesn't seem to be impacting Patrick Kane, and personally, I think that the players, I don't know if the players are going to know about that, or I don't think the players are going to hide that, right? They're not going to. They're ride or die for their teammates over a video coach.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the point I was trying to make is that's how far the Devils are far out with a somewhat depleted pipeline of prospects. That's why I don't think, with Fitzgerald, everybody trying to rip off Fitzgerald, he's smarter than that. I think it's best right now. Look, that trade that just happened, getting that 4th round pick in 2026, whatnot, he gives them options. He could package it this year, or he's got the stockpile of picks. Okay, you analytic folks in scouting department, find me a gem like Sharon Govich or Bratt. Is what.
Yeah, and they've been good at that.
Yeah.
Because Philman was a guy, he's a prospect who was a 6th round pick who looks really good.
And all it really took was Dougie Hamilton to get hurt, unfortunately. But, hey, what's done is done. If you've got that cap money and you need to butter up the Calgary Flames, go do it. I mean, a lot of great players have come out of Calgary, like Kachuk. Even Goudreau, you can put him in that mix. And that Sharon Govich trade for Toffoli. I mean, I think it's good for both teams.
Yeah, these people who are trying to make it out like the Devils lost that trade. I really liked Igor Sharangovich. I really, really liked him. I thought he needed more time with Jack Hughes last year. But the Devils didn't value him. They just didn't. They didn't have him high on their value list. There was a chance they were just going to cut him and not qualify him and let him become a free agent because he got benched in the playoffs.
But I think we've got we've got too many Sharangoviches on this team, though, and I think that's
Mercer's a better Sharangovich. I will say, everybody's out on Mercer this year. Stop it. Get out of here. Mercer's a better Sharangovich. He plays penalty kill. He scores goals. He can go on the rush. I love Sharangovich. I think he'd fit really well on this team right now. But Toffoli is your leading scorer. How are we mad about acquiring the leading goal scorer?
Yeah.
Who might get us a 1st-round pick in a trade deadline deal? What are we doing?
And likable in the locker room as well.
Very likable guy.
Veteran, But, again, I'm just expressing my opinion. I think that's what Tom Fitzgerald is navigating right now because everybody knows that the Devils are going to be like what the Penguins were for the next 10 years. At some point. They're eventually going to try to get there. They have a potential being like that since, the whole Devils foundation is based on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Tank it for a couple seasons, cry poor, and then you get yourself a new arena by opening up casinos, and somehow you get Sidney Crosby, which is the most rigged lottery of all time. And
was that the lockout lottery, or was
Florida it was the lockout lottery? There was no there were
so everybody had the same chance, right?
Yeah, but they never televised that. They never televised it. All it was is they did it in some room somewhere with ping pong balls, and then Gary Bettman comes out and flashing cards, but we never got to see how it was picked, the odds. All that kind of stuff. Because it was almost predictable that the Penguins were going to get Crosby. They had the 1st overall pick with Marc-Andre Fleury in 2003, 2004. Who was that pick? Don't remember. But, going
into
that.
I thought it was Crosby in 04 and Ovechkin. Oh, no, it was
Ovechkin
was Crosby in 05 and Ovechkin 06.
No, Ovechkin was 04. So there was a lockout. There was a year-long lockout. They both were rookies in the 2004.
I remember that. I remember Ovechkin beat him for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. So
But
that was
I must have just flipped them.
Yeah.
So Crosby's younger than Ovechkin?
yes, I would assume so.
Okay. So I flipped
And
them.
then
Okay.
what was Malkin? Malkin was the next year, right? 2006.
Was it 06 or was it 07?
I think it was 06. Now Malkin was a tremendous story. Getting out of Russia. I mean, he basically had to sneak out in the back of a pickup truck. I don't know if that story's true. I remember hearing about it on XM Satellite Radio, but that's what it took.
I had some contacts at one point in Pittsburgh, and I've heard some great Malkin stories. I don't. Do you ever hear the story about why he goes out last and Crosby doesn't?
Why?
Because he said he's been a pro longer. Because he was like, I was pro in Russian Super League while you were in Little Tykes. And he was like, I go last. And Crosby's like, okay. Like, I don't think Crosby cared enough. And again, those are just like wives' tales. But
it's amazing how far Crosby's come. Because I remember right after college, you're talking about 2001, 2002, there was already a Crosby hockey stick before he was even pro. The Crosby blade.
Yeah, but you hear that. You heard that with LeBron. You heard that with, like, the next great thing is always, like, LeBron signed a $100 million Nike contract when he hadn't played a game. It's like these companies
back in those days, I mean, that was new. Now it's like, I would assume.
Now with NIL, like they're giving college volleyball players sponsorship deals, which is great. I wish I was back in college.
I wish I was 18 again. I would do things differently.
Can I get a radio scholarship? I was pretty good at U92 radio at West Virginia University.
I don't know. All depends if the radio makes money. That's what generates scholarships.
Fair. But that's what I got, Sam.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Good podcast. We had some breaking news off the top. We love that.
Yeah, breaking news. Just to let the audience know, I told you this yesterday, that I bring my fly pack around in my car in case there's breaking news. That's that time of year. So if there's breaking news, we will do our best to get on air.
I'll tell you though,
figure it out.
Sam, I don't think this was fly pack worthy.
This? Well, you got to remember, in broadcasting, it's called Murphy's Law. If I don't bring the fly pack, suddenly the Devils get Markstrom and Hannafin by giving up a fourth-round pick that they got in that retention deal.
I mean, listen, like Tom Fitzgerald, like not for nothing, he's really done a good job of like building his relationships. He has a relationship with Nashville, he has a relationship with Boston. I think he's done a good job. He has. I think Pittsburgh, a lot of the guys he had the relationship with are gone, but where is Sherrill in Minnesota?
I believe so.
Is he working with Minnesota? So and the Devils have that relationship there, and what's his name? Is it's Guerin, right? Guerin's in Minnesota. He's the GM in Minnesota.
Bill Guerin? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he's got Devils ties. So,
well, the one thing about Fitzgerald, look, he's not perfect.
Yeah.
But, referencing the James Nichols article, the guy doesn't do a bad deal. Like, he's not going to take a bad deal.
The people mad at Fitzgerald. Like, I don't get it. I don't. It's reactive. It's
maybe I'm thinking
signing
long
Jack
term.
Hughes to that deal. Signing Timo Meyer to the deal when he had higher value. Like, we're talking about Elias Pettersson. Who's better than Meyer? I give you that. We're talking about Elias Pettersson signing for $12 million. We're in a new era now. Like, look at what Nylander got. Like, on this team, I'd rather have Meyer than Nylander. I know Meyer's having a bad season, but I just, for what he brings to this team, to get him for what he got him for, and then sign after all of the years of Brad, fighting with Brad, tooth and nail, to get that deal, an 8-year deal. And the reports say that he gave Brett the deal and said, take it or leave it. And then just kept saying, take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. He, like, honestly, Sam, he put all of the cards on the table when, you know, again, the McLeod thing, it is what it is. A lot of people last offseason wanted to give McLeod a big extension. And Fitzgerald said the literal opposite. He said, if you want to go to arbitration, you're a free agent. See you later. He said that to him and Bastian. And they both came back. Bastian signed a 2-year deal. McLeod signed a 1-year deal. Everybody asked why. I think Fitzgerald was smart to limit his, you know, at the time. I think the Cal foot thing was a mistake, but he was limiting his exposure to that situation, and he can now make a clean break from both of those players who are, if they turn out to be guilty or staying on this organization, and you get out of it. Like, these are the things he's thinking 10 steps ahead all the time. And this season has gone terribly. He didn't get a goalie, but Sam, maybe you can answer this because nobody has been able to give me an answer. What goalie didn't he get? What goalie got traded last offseason that's killing it right now? What goalie didn't he get? Vejmelka didn't get traded. Hellebuck didn't get traded. Saros didn't get traded. Markstrom didn't get traded. Like, these guys didn't get traded. Like, the best of the best, there was one guy he didn't go after, and that's Talbot, who's now bad again. He was great for, I think, 3 months. He's bad again in Los Angeles. So, you know, he avoided the Corpusalo deal. That's just terrible for the Ottawa Senators. Do I think that he could have held down Winnipeg to trade him Hellebuck? But then you have to give him a $9 million per year contract for 8 years. I think it's 8 years, right? Is it 8? It might be 7, but still, that's too big a risk especially for what you'd have to give up to get Winnipeg to make that deal. It was probably Nemitz.
Yeah, and you've already spent some of that capital with that Timo Meier trade. Again, I think Fitzgerald's doing a tremendous job given the situation. And again, if you want to believe that rumor to get Saros and how much the devil, what Barry Trotz was, let's just say Barry Trotz may have been asking for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Fitzy's not falling for it. He's not that desperate. You know, and I love the fact that he has the ability to say no and to squelch the noise from social media and the media itself and actually focus on the actual game plan and he's the architect of the future, Tom Fitzgerald. He got that extension for that reason. So, you know, sticking to your guns, I applaud him on that.
Here's the thing, and this is the last thing I'll say, and we can do our plugs. I wrote about it weeks ago. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. That Fitzgerald now has all the leverage in the goalie trade because, I wrote about this when Barry Trotz used him by name, saying that, you know, I talk to Tom Fitzgerald all the time because they need a goalie and I don't. A team doesn't go out with that publicly unless they're losing leverage. Mm-hmm. And do you know why everybody's saying the Devils? Because they're using the Devils to try to get other teams to spend more. And they're not. Because Toronto's not really looking for a goalie anymore. Edmonton's not really looking for a goalie anymore. I don't think Philly's going to look for a goalie. You know, I know they lost Carter Hart, but they seem to be fine with Eriksson, and they're probably going to sell anyway. There was another team that was looking for a goalie. Anyway, I think the Devils are the player in these goalie trades. And have you noticed that you haven't heard a peep on Gibson? Not a peep. And I think that's because he hasn't been playing very well. So I think the Devils have the leverage. They can get whatever guy they want.
Dubs is like,
they're going to pay a price.
Dubs is like Carolina's looking, and so is Dino saying that. Yeah,
Carolina was the guy. It was the team I was looking for. But Freddie Anderson might come back. and they probably want to see what he looks like before they make a trade. And the deadline's a week from Friday. So I think the Devils make a trade. I think the Devils make a trade. I know I promised you guys a bold predictions on the trade deadline, but a lot of stuff came up over the past week that I had to urgently write. So I didn't give you that, but I'm going to give it to you this week because the trade deadline is now a week away. I'll probably write it sometime this weekend. It might go up Friday morning. Sometime between Friday and Sunday morning, you will get that piece. But the 5 bold predictions for the trade deadline, I actually have to change them because a lot of them I don't see happening anymore, like at all. So I have to kind of like adjust my thought process. But I guess I'm just jumping into plugs, Sam, because that was a plug.
Yep. Go ahead.
Go to pucksandpitchforks.com, Sam. I just wrote a piece. I teased this with Alex Chauvancy about 5v5 scoring, and I wrote a piece about how I think Jack Hughes is back to MVP form, and he's going to be like this the rest of the season as long as he stays healthy. Nick Natal has 2 pieces up, one talking about calling up Chase Stillman, another one on the trade deadline. We're going to have trade deadline up the wazoo this weekend and next week. I haven't decided if I'm going to write about this particular piece. Full disclosure, I have about 10,000 words I have to write on power ranking every NFL franchise, Sam. So that's going to take up a lot of my time tonight, and I wrote the 5v5 one just to kind of get, hit the quota for the month.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'm going to write about this trade. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. I might still do it.
Yeah. Ronaldo, thank you for the super chat. And also, Chris Boker says, Sam's off today, sending some negative energy. Keep it positive, Kevin Ball. What do you mean negative energy?
Why are you sending negative energy? Get that out of here. Send super chats. Don't send negative energy.
I don't send negative energy with that whole Fire Lindy and all this kind of stuff. I was behaving on social media, Nick. Yeah. I kept my mouth shut.
You use my text messages as social media.
Yeah. I actually just, take it out on you. And then say sorry, and then it's over with. All right, couple plugs. Number one, joinourcrew.com. We may have, speaking of positive energy, the cans. Remember the cans at the tailgate? Going to make a comeback at American Whiskey. Or actually, not even a comeback. It's actually going to be introduced at American Whiskey for one night. One night. It could be, I think it's March 23rd against Ottawa. Okay. Again, sign up to joinourcrew.com. We'll have more details of that because we want a can-do attitude. See, that's how I'm marketing it. A can-do attitude. The cans will be out at some point. And on top of that, myself, Shorts Guy, Scotty, and Beer Baron, we're all hopping on a plane to Arizona and Vegas, March 16th and March 17th. If you're going out there, go to joinourcrew.com. We will have the latest of where we're going to do Game Day Live and Devils After Dark. We're bringing the fly pack out west, and you never know who we're going to have on the podcast because we've told Chico, we've told Erica, we've told Sean Burke, we have some. Hey, Nick, we got to contact Eddie Lack. Maybe we'll plug his real estate. He's a real estate mogul in Arizona right now, from what I understand. Total real estate mogul.
He's killing it out there.
Yeah. So we'll be out there, and I know some fans are going to be out there. So, and also, we're looking to do one of these viewing parties, possibly for Devils Rangers at the beginning of April. Working on that as well. So we got lots of things going on live event-wise. And John M. says, Sam needs an Ann Crew brew. Well, yeah. We celebrated with Ann Crew Brew last night where we make winning memories together, one career at a time. All right, that's enough plugging right now. I've extended this podcast long enough. Nick, thank you so much to everybody tuning in, and keep it here. Keep the alerts. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, go to YouTube, type in John Marino football calls, the latest football call from last night that nobody really watched because everyone's asleep. It's up there. How Chief Brody harpooned the Sharks. Yes.
You're a better man than me, Sam. I went to bed.
Yeah. Well, Mrs. Wu kind of just banished me to the basement. I mean, to the bunker last night. Anyway, all right. Good night, everybody. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Till next time, let's go Devils.